Good afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. Ladies and gentlemen, my phone is legitimately blowing up right now with local media texting me left and right. We were quoted, or our show, the I Love CVille Show, was highlighted in the Daily Progress today. The headline in today's Daily Progress involved a Jim Ryan apology. The story centered around Wednesday's I Love CVille Show when Bert Ellis, the embattled, the pink-slipped Bert Ellis from the UVA Board of Visitors joined us for an hour and 15 minutes in a tell-all interview of what led to his firing at the University of Virginia and its most powerful and prestigious board, the UVA Board of Visitors. He did not hold back Bert Ellis, the double who from Hotlanta, doing an interview digitally, virtually from his kitchen, a gorgeous kitchen. First thing my wife said, man, that man's kitchen was gorgeous. Did you see how big it was? And it had that waterfall marble or granite on the kitchen island. It was nice, that waterfall granite that was kind of overflowing the kitchen island and going down the side. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot to cover. If you haven't had an opportunity, the headline in the Daily Progress is Jim Ryan apologizes for disrespectful response to UVA health scandal. In that story, the writers of the Progress highlight the fact that Bert Ellis came on the I Love CVille show and basically offered all the skeletons in the closet from his time on the Board of Visitors. I got some very real questions. Before Bert Ellis was fired by arguably the most powerful man in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Governor Glenn Youngkin, there was an article written in the Washington Post about 24 to 36 hours before Bert Ellis was fired. The Washington Post writers, there were two of them, highlighted anonymous sources, and these anonymous sources provided the foundation of their reporting in what is probably the third or the fourth most important newspaper in the United States of America. And this reporting, ladies and gentlemen, basically was done in a way where it revealed that Bert Ellis was soon to be fired by Governor Glenn Youngkin, and that the governor was offering Mr. Ellis a couple of opportunities to exit from the Board of Visitors. Citing anonymous sources, the Washington Post last week says, look, Mr. Ellis, you can, if this is the governor speaking, you can claim health issues, you can claim you're too busy professionally to continue serving on the board, and you can also claim, Mr. Ellis, that you have done your job with the eradication of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, at UVA, and you no longer have to be on the board. And Bert Ellis said, I'm not going to do that. That's dishonest. That's against Thomas Jefferson's honor code. I'm a double who, a double wahoo, Darden School and UVA undergrad. I am not going to lie to get off this board. You're going to have to fire me. And Glenn Youngkin did just that. And as part of this reporting in the Washington Post, the writers of the third or fourth most influential paper in the country showed body camera footage, referenced body camera footage. And this interaction with Bert Ellis, one of the owners of the White Spot on the UVA corner, managing director of the ownership team, managing partner, ownership team of the White Spot. And this body cam footage they reference in this article says Bert, kind of was combative with the police. Well, we have that footage. We are going to play it on the show. It's 1 minute and 41 seconds of Mr. Ellis interacting with UVA police. I have some very frank and real questions for you, the viewer and listener. Are you ready for these questions? How did the Washington Post reporters know to Freedom of Information Act request the body camera footage from the vault of camera footage that the UVA Police Department has? Hours, tens of hours, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours the UVA Police Department has of body camera footage. How did two reporters that do not frankly cover the University of Virginia on the regular know to Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA, and ask for body camera footage from a very long time ago that shows Bert Ellis combatively interacting with the police? I asked Bert that question in our interview on Wednesday. He straight up, his words, not my words, he straight up said, Jim Ryan and his director of communications, his vice president of communications, what's his name? Brian Coy? UVA, is that his name? That's Bert Ellis straight up said it's Brian Coy, the associate vice president of communications, and Jim Ryan were the leaks for that Washington Post story. They were the ones who told the Post, you should look at that footage. I'm going to now ask that Bert Ellis, Bert, you're watching the program, Jefferson Council, you're watching the program. You should do this. You should Freedom of Information Act request the University of Virginia and see if there's any paper trail at all between the body camera footage at UVA and how it was in the hands of the Washington Post, or how they knew about it. Did someone at the University of Virginia tip off the Post about this Bert Ellis footage? And was that done with the intent of smearing the man to get him fired by the University of Virginia, potentially to protect and preserve Jim Ryan's position as president of the University of Virginia? This is a House of Cards. This is Frank from House of Cards on Netflix type of behavior going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. I sincerely want to know how the Washington Post figured out that there was a 1 minute and 41 second clip out of hundreds, if not out of thousands of hours of body camera footage that UVA police has. How did they know to look for 1 minute and 41 seconds of footage with Bert Ellis as he was interacting with the police on a Saturday night on the UVA corner? We have that footage and we're going to play it for you today on the show. And here's how we've gotten to this point. Bert Ellis on Wednesday's show said he actively was trying to whip the votes. You're rotating lower thirds on screen here, Judah. The lower thirds that you should be having on screen, the headlines, are right now the first two. Jim Ryan came up in the interview we did on Wednesday, and I asked Bert, what is the job security of Ryan? And Ellis straight up said, I'm whipping the votes in place while I'm on the Board of Visitors to try to get Ryan fired. And he says the appetite for his firing is there. And then he calls the governor of Virginia schizophrenic when it comes to Jim Ryan. He says some days he wants to fire Jim Ryan, other days he's lukewarm on firing Jim Ryan. But Bert Ellis was the guy that was whipping the votes, like Frank in the first season of Netflix was the whip in Congress. He was doing that on the Board of Visitors. And ladies and gentlemen, he said the appetite is there. And the question we're all asking is there enough appetite to remove the 7th president of the University of Virginia? Only time will tell. What we do know is Jim Ryan has now issued an apology to UVA Health employees. The president of UVA Health wrote a letter and said, my response last year to UVA Health employees, when they whistleblowed, when they use a whistleblowing letter, the anonymous 128, and said fraudulent billing is happening, medical chart changing is happening to maintain performance standards, regional and national rankings. We're changing the medical charts to make sure we're number one in these rankings. We're fraudulently billing these patients to make as much money as possible for UVA Health. All this stuff was happening. That's what these anonymous doctors alleged was happening. We're talking white-collar racketeering. We're talking fraud. We're talking federal indictment type stuff, ladies and gentlemen, here. That's what this anonymous 128 alleged in writing. Jim Ryan responds to these anonymous 128 doctors and said, all these 128 doctors is the teenagers that did not get invited to the prom in high school. They're bitter, they're angry, they're the wallflowers at the dance that don't have any friends, they're the malcontents, the people that are a part of any organization that are sour and angry, and they should be disregarded, they should be forgotten, they should be ignored. All they did was tarnish our brand, UVA. Shame on them. That's what Jim Ryan wrote in writing, and he signed it. He signed it. He basically lifted his leg and did you know what onto these guys, onto these gals. But these guys and gals were not blades of grass like Max the German Shepherd does in the front yard of our house. Instead, they were physicians, trusted physicians that save people's lives. And boy, oh boy, did that piss off this anonymous 128. And then they dug deeper in the sand and they said Jim Ryan was wrong. And now Jim Ryan is apologizing. He's saying, I should not have done this as a leader. I made a mistake. And I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, this question. Is this the first time that Jim Ryan has ever apologized for poor leadership while president of the University of Virginia? Is this the first time we've ever seen a mea culpa, and I'm sorry, from the president? And is he offering that apology because he knows the seat is very, very hot? And you know what else could make the seat even hotter? If the governor of Virginia, in his final handful of months while in the mansion in Richmond, decides it's time for a change. Or if the Jefferson Council or Bert Ellis himself, Freedom of Information Act, all the emails and correspondence between the police department, the president's office, and the director of communications office. How did the Washington Post know to ask for body camera footage from a long time ago from the UVA police department? How did the body camera footage on a Saturday night make its way to the Post? Did the officers mention it to higher-ups in the department? Did higher-ups in the department mention it to middle management at UVA? Did middle management at UVA mention it to upper management and C-suite at UVA? And did C-suite mention it to the top dog at UVA? And is there a corresponding communications paper trail? And if this footage was archived and stored for a rainy, stormy day, utilized as a play on a chessboard for when needed, then we legitimately have a frank House of Cards Netflix situation going on here in Charlottesville, Virginia. And here on the I Love CVille show, the same show that was the foundation of today's coverage, with Jim Ryan apologizing to UVA health faculty and system employees. Read the article referencing the interview we did with Bert Ellis. Today's show is going to drive the news cycle even further. We're going to show you audio and visual, the sound, the tape, the footage of what happened on that Saturday night on the University of Virginia corner with fired UVA Board of Visitors member Bert Ellis and UVA police. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this program, you know I back the blue. Ladies and gentlemen, you know I'm just asking questions like I always do. I don't think the police did a damn thing wrong. UVA, these patrolmen did nothing wrong. I don't think Bert Ellis did anything wrong. But if there was somehow that footage going from a body camera and up the professional totem pole, and then, kind of put on a desk and earmark for a rainy day when someone in power needed that footage to smear somebody, then that's where something wrong was done. You have that sound and footage ready to go.
Yep.
Judah Wickower, this is Bert Ellis interacting with UVA patrol on a Saturday night on the UVA corner outside the White Spot in Charlottesville, Virginia. In 3, 2, and 1, play it.
Last name Cunningham. First name John.
I'm raising total hell with me.
Sir, this is Susan Del Freed. She's one of our supervisors.
What's going on tonight, sir?
This is Mr.
There is
Bert
none
Ellis.
of you out here on the corner.
Really?
There is not one cop between here and Elliowood. Not one. There's not one ambassador.
Okay,
This is a Saturday night at 11 o'clock. This is when bad guys start to come out, and you're invisible. You're over there in your blasted cars.
Well, sir, what I can tell you is, first off, I can't speak for the ambassador. Secondly, please don't assume that we're not monitoring the activity
I
out
don't
here.
care.
Because we
Monitoring doesn't scare the bad guys away.
Well,
And
sir,
you guys haven't figured
we have
that out
been-
from policing yet?
I'm sorry that you don't have a very good impression of us.
I have
But
a
we
great
have
impression of you, but you're not doing what you said you were going
We
to
have
do.
done a lot of good work out here, and we continue to do our good work out here every weekend.
There should be somebody standing in front of Trinity. There should be somebody standing in front of Elliewood.
With all due respect, sir, I've not been unkind to you, okay? Please don't be unkind to me.
All it takes is one guy, one bad guy with a gun, and this whole place closes down.
And all it takes is you distracting us from our work right now.
I was just sitting here looking at you. He came over to me.
If you would be so kind as to let me leave your presence now, I'm going to go do my job.
I didn't even talk to you guys. I was just looking at you.
You know what? You can look at us all day long, but I'm not going to entertain negativity with you, sir, and I'm sorry. I hope your night gets better.
Okay, so that's that's 1 minute and 41 seconds of body camera footage with Bert Ellis interacting, ladies and gentlemen, with the UVA Police Department. In that interaction, I first say that the UVA police folks, the UVA police officers were extremely respectful, kept their emotions in check, and did very well in their interactions with Bert Ellis. Okay? When you have somebody come to your patrol car and insist that you get out of your patrol car and start doing your job, some folks would have taken that the wrong way. Those officers handled that situation extremely well. Extremely well.
They came over to him, though.
Are we two-shotting this?
No, not yet.
We're going to two-shot?
Yeah.
Okay, offer a little perspective here.
They came over to him. He says in the video that I was just standing here watching you guys, and this guy came over to me. And then the other cop, the one with the body cam, is the one talking to him at the time of the footage. And he's basically just telling them, look, all it takes is one person with a gun, and this entire corner shuts down. You should have one person here, one person there. Instead, you're sitting in a car over there, and she's like, we're monitoring things. And he's like, yeah, but monitoring things doesn't provide a presence that keeps the bad elements away. He's got a point. And
he has a point. The way you go about making a point, there's different ways of doing it.
Again,
there's different ways of doing it, just like the way that he's gone about making points of the Board of Visitors. There's different ways of doing it.
But again, he did not approach them and start anything.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Tomato, tomato. It depends on who you ask or who you talk to here. We even talked about this on Wednesday in the interview with Bert Ellis. Still, we're getting in the weeds here. Whether or not he approached the police or the police approached him is not the story. The story is this. That was 1 minute and 41 seconds of footage. If you were just to look at that footage upon first look, it would appear, because perception is reality when it comes to footage in today's world, it would appear that Bert is being combative with the police. Would you not agree with that? If you just saw it on first time look, wouldn't it appear that the man is a bit angry and antagonistic to the police? Judah, yes or no?
Yeah, it does appear that way.
Okay, so the Washington Post used that footage and other anonymous sources in its reporting hours before Bert Ellis was fired by Glenn Youngkin. In its reporting to smear Bert Ellis and maybe force the governor's hand.
They also mischaracterized a lot in their report.
Oh, understatement. You want to highlight some of the things they mischaracterized in the Washington Post report?
They don't mention at all that he is the co-owner and manager of the White Spot restaurant, which he's standing out in front of. Which
is an extremely important point to mention, because if you say he's the owner of the White Spot, it gives him a reason or a motive to be in that location. He's running his business. If you don't say that he's the owner of the White Spot, it makes it look like this guy is deranged and just telling the police what to do and has no business being on the UVA corner at nighttime.
Yeah.
Very good point.
It also doesn't mention the fact that all of the merchants on the corner were concerned with the spike in local crime. A few days earlier, it says 800 people had joined a virtual town hall to discuss a recent spate of shootings, which the Post neglected to mention. And there's the fact there are the facts behind all of the shootings and the violence and other stuff, where Tim Longo has admitted that in the 16 years he served as the chief of police of the city of Charlottesville, from 2001 to 2016, he never had more than the number that should have been mentioned in the paper in an entire year. And this was over the course of maybe a few months. So there's a lot that they failed to mention in their report. And like you said, seeing some white-haired guy standing around arguing with police makes him seem like a crackpot.
Ladies and gentlemen, this all seems like I'm just going to ask questions. I'm going to ask questions and you interpret it any way you want. This seems like a strategic smear campaign.
Yeah.
And was the strategic smear campaign led or put upon Bert Ellis? Who led this charge? Was this done to preserve power? We already know at the UVA health system, okay? We already know at UVA Health, an entity that does billions of dollars a year in top-line revenue, that the CEO of UVA Health was using abusive power tactics to maintain control, influence, and power, leveraging demotions and promotions, bullying, alleged white-collar racketeering, fraudulent billing, upcoding, whatever you want to call it, medical chart changing. Bert Ellis said the report was damning in our interview on Wednesday, which made and determined the news cycle today and the Daily Progress. We see media watching the show right now from Richmond, all over Charlottesville, and some media guys in Northern Virginia watching us right now on the program. These are the questions I want to know. If this kind of abuse of power do anything to stay in a position of authority that is happening at UVA Health, are we not to think it's going to happen at other departments at the university, including potentially the top spot? How did the information 1 minute and 41 seconds get from the cloud where the hundreds of thousands of hours of body camera footage are stored to two writers at the Washington Post that are not on the University of Virginia beat? How was that tip made? What is the correspondence of communication? Bert Ellis, hear me out. Is this my camera right here?
Yep.
Mr. Ellis. Freedom of Information Act request. All information tied to this body camera footage. FOIA it. Take the results from your FOIA, sir, and publish them online. We deserve to know if body camera footage is being used in a tactic or ploy to maintain power and influence and employment positions that compensate individuals more than $1 million per year in total compensation. We deserve to know. Alumni deserves to know. Students deserve to know. The community deserves to know, sir. FOIA, all aspects tied to this footage. And if the communication happened with burner email accounts or email accounts not tied to a Virginia.edu account or a UVA server, you still should ask the question, what communication in the early stage of the footage, from patrol person to sergeant or lieutenant to chief, from chief to communications director or upwards, if anything was passed there? Because somehow that footage got from the street, from the corner, into an email inbox of someone of importance. And good God, we deserve to know if that was used as a ploy or tactic a long time from when that footage actually was recorded. And then pushed into the inbox of a reporter to smear a member of the most powerful and prestigious board, perhaps in all of the Commonwealth of Virginia. A board that is determining a yearly budget of $5.8 billion. You members determine $5.8 billion in yearly spend. Are we really living in a world in 2025 where body camera footage can go from the cloud amongst hundreds of thousands of other hours of body camera footage in an archive get clipped and cherry-picked and funneled through a communications grapevine to the third or fourth most influential paper in the world, all for smear tactic strategy to try to chop the head off a board member that's dictating the pace and tempo of a $5.8 billion budget and a 10% cut associated with that budget, which is equivalent to $500 million, and the lives and livelihoods of so many positions and professions associated with that $500 million? Are we really in a world where one man, the whip, who's drumming up the votes on the Board of Visitors, who's trying to cut $500 million off a $5.8 billion yearly budget, trying to drop an atomic bomb on diversity, equity, inclusion at a university that's leading the charge nationally at diversity, equity, and inclusion, is collateral damage, proverbially had his legs and head chopped off by a smear campaign led potentially internally within the school, all to protect and preserve yearly budget spend, a department called DEI, keep massive layoffs from happening, and other investigative and internal reports released. Jesus Christ, this is Frank from House of Cards and Netflix, and we're living the world in Charlottesville. Do you see it, Judah? Do you see it?
I've never seen the show, but
Do you see what's happening here?
yeah,
This is insanity.
it's crazy.
And we are just connecting the dots and asking questions on this talk show, because we know legacy media in our market and elsewhere has been eviscerated by publicly traded companies that cuts human capital. And when human capital gets cut from reporting and media, the truth goes hidden. God, this is crazy. This is so crazy. This is so crazy. If you were working for an organization and you were the senior position at that organization with a yearly budget of $5.8 billion, and someone that was on the board of this organization said we're going to cut $500 million plus out of the budget, and then we're going to completely destroy this department, DEI, and then we need to radically reshape the UVA health system, and then we have to keep capital improvement projects, new construction projects from happening, and then we have to lower tuition for in-state students and out-of-state students, and then we have to fire administrators left and right because we have too much bloat and payroll, and then we have to fire the C-suite of the organization, and then we have to limit the levels of free speech on grounds at the University of Virginia. And he was trying to do this all at the same time. Would that person not come into the crossfire of power?
When you put it that way.
That's what happened. And he's come into the crossfire of power of some important people who wholly SHIT are doing some devious and deceptive counteractions. And that's why my phone, when I go to text messages right now, has 26 unread messages since the show was started. FOIA, Bert. FOIA, Jefferson Council. FOIA, Mr. Bacon. Do it today and publish the results for all of us to see. Because we may be looking at a story where UVA health is just the tip of the iceberg. fraudulent billing, medical chart changing, and white-collar racketeering at the revenue driver of a university that spends $5.8 billion per year to operate its institution, those could be the absolute tips of the iceberg here. Oh my God. And we have a governor's race happening this year. The governor's about to exit the mansion in Richmond. And depending on who you talk to at a national level, he's on the short list for a presidential push. Youngkin. Then you got a hotly contested governor's race going on right now in a bellwether state that's drawing the interest of not just Tom, Dick, and Harry's, not just Sally, Jennifer, and Caroline's, but the wealthiest and most influential donors in the Commonwealth and across the country. Judah, when you go home tonight, you sleep with one eye open and the hammer under your pillow, and make sure you lock the doors.
Wow.
And Bert, Ellis, this is when tough men double down and they fight for truth, and legacy is determined. Bert, Ellis, this could be your legacy here. This literally could be your legacy here. Let's see what you're made of, Bert. Judah Wickower and Jerry Miller on the I Love CVille Show.